probably heard of the saying that we as human beings only use like 10% of our brain. We could actually achieve so much more if we tapped into it more. Well, this is not what this video is about. Maybe to some little extent, but not mainly. When it comes to INFJs, 90% of our mental power, and don't quote me on it, it may be less than that, but the point is a huge amount of our intellect, of our capabilities, is not only hidden to other people, but it's also hidden for us. It has so much to do with the fact that people always see us through their own lens. We do that as well. And because we have such a unique way of looking at life, at understanding other people, we actually talk to people on a level how we think they actually understand us. This is very normal, but it's also something that's holding us back. Until we understand that most people will underestimate us, until we understand that we are probably underestimating ourselves because we think like, okay, if it's so hard for everybody else, it's going to be just as hard for me, so I shouldn't try. And as long as we don't recognize those things, we're going to hold ourselves back. So this has everything to do with our own perception and also with the perception of others. So let's talk about how we as INFJs can tap into those 90% we may not even be using from our mind's potential and how we can make the most out of it, how we can enjoy life, how we can get the relationships we want, how we can get the fulfillment we so much yearn for, and live a life that feels epic to us on all areas. Before we get started, I want to remind you in October only, I offer a special promotional bundle of the INFJ Epic Life audio guide and the ebook. And remember, the next INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp call is next Saturday, October 25th. Everything you need to know and also the free poster you can download, you can find through the links in the description. The first thing we have to understand is that we as INFJs have a very deep core. And a lot of personality types have a deep core. It just goes into different directions. Maybe INFPs are all in their emotions and they have this great emotional world. ISTJs can go into detail on so many areas. For us INFJs, our depth has a lot to do with our introverted intuition in combination with our introverted thinking. So that's all about being able to understand others, being able to foresee how things are going to develop, being able to really understand where people have hidden insecurities or where something is holding them back. And it also gives us the opportunity to really help people in a way that makes them move forward in life. And as long as we don't understand that this is something to be valued, if we think, oh, this is just, a gift I've been given and I should never use it, I should just give it out and not expect anything in return because otherwise I would be a bad person, we're going to create a lot of heartache, a lot of, mental blocks for ourselves because yes, of course, it's your natural gift. But before we're able to help others, we have to make sure that we're acting in our best interest. That doesn't mean we're going to be manipulative. That doesn't mean we're going to lie to others. But it also doesn't mean that we're going to not use our insights for bettering ourselves because we think we have no right to take a so-called shortcut. It's not a shortcut. Every single person has their unique abilities in life, and this one is ours. We have a deep inner core. We see things very deeply. We experience a lot of things very deeply. And this has to be something that before we can use, we have to acknowledge. The gap between our mind and the world. I always say as INFJs, if we're not able to create a bridge between those two worlds, we're going to feel displaced. We're always going to feel like outsiders. We're always going to feel like life is happening outside of us and we're just looking through a window. Everything is happening and I'm just sitting here waiting for life to finally start. I've been in this situation many years. I've made progress on paper. Everything looked great from the outside, but I knew I wasn't really tapping into my potential. Life wasn't happening through me. And we have to get to the place where we understand that our mind is always going to be 10 steps ahead of what reality currently looks like. Some people live in the past. Some people are, maybe through practice able to be in the present more. We are most likely thinking of the future. And we are avoiding like the here and now. And so often we do this because the here and now is just not something that we like. And we have to understand that these are just two different things. And that's not a bad thing. That's not something to avoid. It's just something to integrate in our mental map. So there is a discrepancy between how we see the world and how it actually is. And yeah, you can say everybody sees the world differently, and barely anybody can really say this is a fact and everybody agrees on it. So I mean, let's say everybody can agree that Denmark is a country, right? Okay, yeah, we're not going to go into some specifics and people who don't believe in certain borders, but you know what I'm saying. Generally speaking, most people can agree Denmark is a country. Okay, that's a fact. Everybody can agree on. Great. But if it comes to really saying, well, that's how life should be, those are the things that actually matter. Like, who cares about, status? Who cares about materialism and all of those things? That's an interpretation of ours to say, in an ideal world, this is how it should be. And everybody should want to live the same kind of ideal that we want. That's just not the case. Let's just get our head around it and understand that doesn't make people less humane. It also is important to note that just because you think you and another person have so much in common and it seems like they would understand you because you understand them, you will understand quite quickly if there's just something that's not really clicking there. And that's the moment where we have to, put on the brakes and understand, okay, I need to shift gears. This is not going in a direction it should. And we should not spend any more time trying to figure out how to get the other person to live in our mental space, to join us where we are. Not going to happen. No need for it. You might feel alone, but the reason why you feel alone is not because there's nobody who sees the world the way you see it. If you're able to create a bridge between how you see the world and how it currently is, everything starts making sense, because then you really infuse who you are into reality and you're able to connect with people on that. And that's coming from somebody who really felt isolated, who really felt they had no connection to other people on a deeper level. And I don't feel like this at all anymore. And it's not because people now understand my inner workings. It's because I've made it a point to create a bridge between how I see the world and create results that actually benefit other people. And through that, other people see me through a new lens. So I can tell people, oh, I have those beliefs and, I think I'm really strong in that aspect. They're not really going to see that. But what they're going to see is, oh, okay, she's been doing this for over 10 years. She moved the needle in her life substantially. You can see how a person's life develops, how their relationships improve, how their inner security and just calmness gets better. And that is something that then other people can connect with. But you can never expect people to join you in a mental space that is not made reality yet. Intuition meets strategy. So I want you all to look at your intuition as a tool. It is not something that is given. It is also not something that is necessarily true. Our intuition shows us the most likely outcome of a situation given the information that we have. So our intuition is a great way to create a strategy around it, because most people don't stick with something that they envision because it kind of gets lost in their mind. That's not how it is with us. Our intuition makes sometimes a possible scenario so true, it already gives us such a dopamine hit. It feels so true that we may even not be able to recognize, is this reality or is this just in my mind? I have a really hard time with this, and this is actually one of my superpowers, the fact that it is so blurry, because that is actually a sign why I stick with things that I believe in so much, why I succeed in so many areas, because when I know something could be true and it feels like it's true and I don't even see the difference between it, I just live that imagined reality until it becomes reality. And so we have to understand that our intuition isn't something that has happened already. It is not the truth. It is a strategy. And it is a strategy if we take action on it. And the best part about it is when you start taking action on your ideas, on the things you believe in, you don't only say, oh, I could do this better than that person, or this will develop like this, or I knew things would turn out this way, but you actually start taking action, you will get new insights. That is the best part about it. When you start creating something that hasn't existed yet, so you publish your book, you have that weird conversation with a friend where you talk about things that matter to you, you actually will get real life feedback. And every single time you get feedback from other people, from situations, you get new information that you can put into your system and create the next step in your vision. And this part is actually the most exciting part of all of it, that you get to tap into a new situation that you've never been in before, and that your intuition will guide you to the next step. Because well, my intuition has already helped me in the last 1,000 times, so guess what? It will also help me this time around. Emotional and moral depth. So as INFJs, when it comes to those 90% that we have to tap into, what I have learned is that we're not as emotionally intelligent as we often think we are. And hear me out on this, because yes, we can understand other people very deeply. We can, understand where they're coming from. We can feel their pain. But what a lot of us are lacking, and I also used to have a big blind spot in that, is that we understand how vulnerable we are to actually living that other person's pain way more than our own. We can neglect ourselves. And if you want to level up, if you really want to use all of your capacity of, what you're capable of experiencing, you also have to look at it from your own perspective. So often we as INFJs meet people and we understand their pain points. We understand the trauma that they've gone through. We feel for them. And, this is showing one aspect of our capacity. But that capacity is even bigger than you think, because you're also able to understand your own perspective. You also understand that although you feel that other person's pain, it doesn't mean you should. Every single person can be understood on some level. We're not talking about like the biggest monsters in the world, okay? But like most people, who are hurt, we can sort of like understand where this hurt is coming from. But if we're not careful, we're not going to understand how much they're hurting us. And we're not going to understand that we need that compassion that we give to others for ourselves first. This is something we talk about in our purpose section in Bootcamp, for example, because we say no matter how I want to bring my gift out, even if it's, in a one-on-one relationship, it always has to start with, am I allowed to show up the way I feel best about myself? If the only way I can connect with another person is if I have to dim my light, if I have to pretend I'm less than, if I have to switch off how I feel in order to focus on that person, it's not going to work. Have it as a great reminder. If it's rather easy for you to understand others, then chances are that your capacity is bigger than you're currently using. And that capacity most likely shouldn't be used for other people before you don't make sure that you yourself feel great about yourself. That's when you can really help people on a long-term trajectory, because most of the time otherwise we fall into codependent relationships. We enable other people to continue with their self-destructive behavior because we just suffer for them and we feel so bad that they're going through so much pain. Turning hidden potential into strength. So when we talk about 90% that we're not tapping into, this is not something we should feel sad about at all. It is more so to think about, wow, look at the life I've created so far. And I've created this most likely not even having tapped into most of my potential. What can I actually do now to get it to the next level? Not because my life will look more successful or because then my life will be more meaningful or, I will win some points on some level. No. Our life is valuable just the way it is. If we're sitting on the couch all our life or if we change millions of lives. I honestly believe that. Life in itself is such a gift, and everything beyond that is a question of, do I feel like I'm adding something? Does this make me feel better? Because you could always do more. You could also sacrifice more of yourself, right? There's always this one perspective of, I'm honoring my life enough to not confront myself with so much pain of others. And there's also the other perspective of, my life becomes meaningful because I suffer in order to create value for others. So there's always a different perspective. The question though is, am I really feeling like I live an epic life? whatever that may look for you. And that epic life is something that is uniquely yours. If you would look at your life, would it make you get excited? Would it feel like, oh, I would want to be friends with that person. I would want to live that person's life. And this is not something of, oh, I've achieved it or I've not achieved it. This is a leaning into part. This is a point of habits. This is about creating an identity that you love and that you're proud of. And so no matter where you are in your journey, there's always a choice of what step do I want to take that's going to make me feel more alive, more fulfilled, or am I going to go down a path that makes me tap more into despair, not being happy with life, and just giving up on really enjoying my life to the fullest. I want to help you with the first. That is my life's mission. And if you want my help, there are so many ways I can help you. You can work with me one-on-one. You can get the great promotion now in October of the audio guide and the ebook. And of course, you can join us in bootcamp. The next live call will be Saturday, October 25th. We're going to talk about INFJ priority management, and I hope to see many new faces there. Everything you need to know you can find through links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then check out the video you see on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.